Hi, this is Barbara Sanders, and it is June 29th, 2026, full moon in Capricorn. And I haven't recorded on my YouTube channel, Sacred Metamorphoses, in quite some time. So I wanted to do a couple of things. First, I wanted to read a fairy tale, but I'm going to do that at the end. And as I was thinking about recording this morning and last night, I thought, let me talk about some things that are going on with me, an update, and I hope it to be not instructive, but just uh, grist for the mill, something for you to think about in your own life. And I'd love for you to communicate with me about how any of this strikes you, or how you feel about your life, or how you want to collaborate perhaps on some of the things I'm doing. Because my life has gotten really great lately, and I want to call this little talk Open and Willing. So first I thought it would be a different kind of life. And then I thought it was a life after retirement. And then anyway, it's open and willing. And I coined that phrase from Vickie Spray, who has been my spiritual counselor for the last few years. Vickie Spray is wonderful. I will, in my notes below this video, cite some of the references I'm going to make because I've got a lot of resources to share with you as well. So let me look at my notes for a second. I will say that I am a Sagittarian by birth, Aries rising, a whole bunch of fire. Leo is my south node, though, and Aquarius is my north node, and my moon is in Libra. For those of you who are astrologically minded, I used not to be, but then I took some courses like one in quantum astro, uh, all things quantum astro. And so I've gotten more familiar with the terminology, and I love the way some people look at astrology, and I'll talk about that later. But anyway, I'm not an astrologer. I am what would I call myself now? I'm a writer. I almost said the word healer, but that's a really hard one for me, healer, because I am semi-retired. I was a psychotherapist for over 30 years and a psychiatric hospital manager before that. Um, and I retired. This is based on, I will say, following my mother's death in fall of 2022. She was 99 and a half years old. And I would love to live that long. I'm 73 now, and I retired around 70. Again, semi-retired, and was able to get into so many other things and new things and old things that I've always wanted to learn about and experience and never quite had the time to, because I grew up in this culture. In my family, there was a huge puritanical work ethic: make money, support yourself, do good for the world, be of service to the world, all those wonderful things, especially in the Deep South, and a religious family. Though I always say it was Episcopalian, low church. So it was the best of all religious organizations I thought to be in at that point. My daddy was a um, Episcopal priest or minister, and I won't go into my whole story, but I grew up in the Deep South in the 1950s and 60s, and I'm here to tell about it. But anyway, open and willing. Okay. Um, let's see where I'd like to start. First of all, this is Sacred Metamorphoses, my YouTube channel, where I have a lot of older, former conversations with other healthcare providers. And I have birds in here. I have three Gouldian finches, which are my favorites these days, in a cage in my apartment, and they are fluttering around, having just awakened for the day. But I was going back. I can get tangential, and that's okay. We women in particular don't always think and do things in a linear fashion, but we can go around things, and it's sort of elliptical. And I will talk more about spirals. Spirals are very important to me. And so that's how I think and how I talk sometimes. So I'm not following any linear path to describing what I've been going through lately. Again, as a just a reference for you, and to provide you with some resources that might be useful or interesting to you. So my mother died almost 3 years ago now. And 99 and a half. What a woman. She and I had the mother-daughter conflicts that many people have. She was not my best friend. Until late in her life, I actually told her she was my best friend, which I had never thought about or done in my entire life. My dad died in 2013. She died in 2022. I had a sister who died in 2000, early 23. So I went through a lot of loss. And what I did with that loss initially was go down to Florida for several months a year for the 2 or 3 years. Um, we always grew up as a family going to the beach, and I started going to St. George Island retreats with Tammy Roth at Mother Ocean retreats sometime right as the pandemic was ending, and fell in love with the forgotten coast of Florida. And so we began going down to Florida, separating ourselves from community. We've lived in Nashville, Tennessee for over 50 years, my husband and I and our adult son. And I needed to separate myself from my regular community and retire mostly and learn how to be with myself with more silence and quiet and stillness and lack of community, so that I didn't do my normal extroverted thing, which is I love being with people sometimes. I engage and I love to engage with people and love to get to know people. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that a lot of my extroversion, if you want to call it that, and my enjoyment and my career based on engaging with people, I'll say it, this is not quite true, but I'll call it now a false self. It's the personality, the Leo South Node that I grew into to learn to survive, like we all learn to develop our personalities and adaptations around how we survive. I was the third of three children, so I learned to be the mascot, the performer, and it served me well. Let me just say that it served me well for so many years, and I've loved engaging with people. Something about after my mother died, I needed to just go inward and be with the divine and be quiet and still and see who I was now that my mother and my father had died and my sister had died. It was a really beautiful and wonderful experience of slowing down, which I'd never done in my life, and I'm still trying to learn to practice slowing down, listening, feeling what I feel instead of distracting myself with busyness and things to do and commitments and engaging. And wow, I've learned a lot. After doing some women's retreats down at St. George Island, I did start this relationship with Vickie Spray, who's down in Florida and is a wonderful spiritual mentor and teacher. I will give you her information if you're interested in talking with her. She helped me look at some core issues that I had never, in all my therapy practices of my own and the alternative therapies that I practice and enjoy myself as a participant, she helped me get down to some core issues that I had never really known about in terms of the cognition about them and how they fueled me, being a pleasing person, how that was a way of my being able to engage with the world and hopefully get the love that I so wanted and needed. And it worked a lot. It worked often. My busyness helped me manage my feelings from a somewhat anxious family and created and had my own anxiety. So I learned so many ways to manage that, and they were all helpful and useful, and I appreciate having had the life I did. And this is about being open and willing to change. And I remember Vickie asking me, "Are you open and willing?" And I was like, "Yes," not knowing what that meant. I've also, though, I want to say some other things about what I've done over the last few years, and since COVID, actually, I began participating in online classes, mostly with Tammy Roth, some with Jenna Longmire, who's here in Nashville. Tammy was in Nashville and moved down to Florida and is now in Georgia. And Tammy taught me a lot about family constellations and our lineage and ancestry and how we can not only find ways to heal ourselves, but also our traumas from past lives, traumas from our ancestors, um, people will call this woo thinking, but I think it's really just a beautiful description of how we live in the world. We didn't come here, as first beings. We were not Adam and Eve, whatever you believe about religion. We came here with a whole ancestral line, and all sorts of things happened in that ancestral line. And we, as human beings, learned to do the best we could do in our cultures. And my culture happened to be in the deep south of the United States, where I learned so well how to work hard and please others and uh, put myself sort of last, though I was getting my needs met because I was codependent, a term that's hard to describe. But by pleasing people, it helped feed me. What I've learned in the last several years, especially since COVID, which was also actually a wonderful time for me before my mother died, because it helped me slow down. It helped me not do all the community things I would be used to doing and being busy. But I was able to start that process of going more inward and being quieter and realizing I am a lot of who I've been all these years, and I'm a lot more than who I've been all these years, or how I acted all these years, I will say. And I found ways to be quiet and calmer and peaceful in ways that I've never experienced before. I was just telling a group yesterday, I have a women's integration group that I'm in, and I was telling them yesterday, without some of the practices, many of which are alternative kinds of healing practices, my body until the last few years never really knew what peacefulness felt like. I was always on the go. There's good stress and there's bad stress, but I was always someone running on adrenaline a lot of my life, and getting things done, being a good problem solver and smart enough to know how to navigate the world and make good money. And I was a psychotherapist for over 30 years, which I so enjoyed as a career. And when I've moved away from that, also reflecting on it is very interesting how it worked with all these former patterns I had, which was, again, engaging, reaching out to others, getting my needs met by helping others. I remember some experiences of thinking, oh yeah, the message is I need to save the world. And there was one that was, I need to feed the world. And I've challenged in those messages I got from wherever, for many years. Anyway, let me get back to my story of this year. So this year, I spent my last winter in Florida at the home that we had bought, and we've sold it now, but I'll still go down there some. And I started a few things new. Again, I've always been in these online, not always. In the last several years since COVID started, I've been in online women groups, which are not just support groups. They're not just counseling groups. They're not just feminist groups at all. They are groups about how we learn to heal ourselves and work with each other as others heal, and to find more love and compassion and forgiveness for ourselves. That's a big statement. For ourselves and others. Usually it starts with others. How do we love, forgive, and have compassion for others? And then we have to get back to ourselves. Why don't I find ways to love, heal, and get more compassionate with myself? And that, in my training early on, was selfish and self-centered, and women didn't do that. So a lot of women that I work with and am around these days are into recovery and into finding new ways to be with themselves and other people and with spirit. And it's delightful, let me just say. So this year, I continue to use my psychic, Frank Castellano, who inspires me greatly. I've used him for over 25 years here in Nashville. He's a psychic. Um, I have participated in some workshops with a new person to me starting last fall, is Sandy Mueller, and she is a gifted energy body healer, which that means our healing is everything. It's body, mind, heart, spirit. I'll go more into that later. You can find Sandy Mueller at the Estuary at times. I've taken some workshops on healing from her this year and on forgiveness, which have been experiential workshops, which have helped us practice how we do that healing work with ourselves and others and how we forgive ourselves and others. Thank you, Sandy. Um, in the Estuary with Susan Crumpton, who I knew 30 years ago, starting out in my practice, wonderful founder of the Estuary, which is now, you should get on their newsletter. It's Estuary in Nashville. They have so many alternative practice workshops, seminars, ongoing groups for people, women, men, about how to be in this crazy, I will call it crazy, chaotic world that we live in. If I look at the news even once in a while, but I used to look at the news a lot of the while, uh, this world of violence, transition, hope, and fortitude somehow, wars, cruelty between people, corruption in our leadership, abuse of all sorts and kinds. I had to find a different way to live in this world than how I was. I was an activist for many years. My parents were activists in the 1960s in the civil rights movement. So I came from good stock, and we were always trying to help make changes in the world. But finally, I realized I had to really focus on myself and make changes within, or I would still carry around my highly judgmental nature or critic or superego, if you want to call it that, which would fuel me in terms of judging myself and others so harshly, even if people thought of me as a very nice person all the time. Nice person, a little enthusiastic, too much sometimes, outspoken sometimes, um, always outgoing and I'm just an enthusiastic person, and that was kind of quashed in my family of origin, like, shh, shh, don't be too loud, don't be too animated. It wasn't even don't be too sad or depressed or grievous. It was don't be too animated. And I grew up shushing myself. Anyway, there's a lot more there I won't go into right now, but I also developed my own family of hearing, calm down, calm down. So I found finally in the last 10, 20 years that my anxiety and my exuberance about life and under stress, I might get more busy, was uncomfortable for my family. It would make them uh, just uncomfortable. So it was not a pleasant experience for them, though. I was like, why isn't anyone joining me in this animation? And they would be like, a little too much, mom, or wife, whatever. But we are still a family and we're loving each other even more and more each day. And I will say that. So back to this spring, I joined a group that I've been in groups before with Tammy Roth and Emily Trinkhaus. That's Trinkhus. She's out in Colorado. She is a good astrologer, great astrologer. Tammy has gone from being in her life, I won't speak for her, but I'll say something. She started out in corporate life, great success in corporate life, and then became a healer of sorts, family constellations facilitator, all sorts of things, and then a quantum astrologist, which she then combined with family constellations. So her workshops are fabulous in that they bring in not only some astrology, but also, again, that being able to to drop into quantum space, the quantum field, which is inside us, all around us. We are accessible to it. It is available to us if we learn how to stop, be still, and breathe and drop in to that space. And we can learn so much more that way than all the books and knowledge that we've learned. Anyway, it's a remarkable process that Tammy's evolved into and shown and teaches now and facilitates. And she comes to Nashville every now and then. She does family constellations with Janet Tuck here. So I advise you to go to tammyroth.com and look up everything she does because she's wonderful. Well, I joined this Eros Unbound 8-week class, course, community this spring with Emily and Tammy online, and Eros, Eros. And they're doing another one in mid-July, starting mid-July for 6 months. But this was the first sort of pioneer community of doing an 8-week thing. And we, several women, and the two facilitators went into a space that, I'll just speak for myself, helped me feel more alive and awake and connected to myself, to my heart, to my body, to my humanity, and to spirit and galactic space in ways that I've never felt before. So I'll just say that that's my advertisement for that. But it was what Tammy excels in, and these other people that I do trainings with, is there's a community that builds around topics, but the community itself is the healing practice. The community of women, mostly. I've certainly done other things with co-ed groups, but mostly with women, who are able to share their vulnerabilities, become more intimate with each other more quickly, online or in person, and go down to the deep roots of our stresses, our concerns, our conflicts, our traumas, our ways of functioning that we developed in order to deal with those ways that we grew up, and what's happened to us and what we've done to other people. And I didn't mean to go into all this, but I highly recommend this. Anyway, I did that 8-week group. At the same time, I started an individual process with Tammy, called the Pythia vessel process, or I'll call it that. It's Pythia. So Pythia was the oracle of Delphi. It's a role, and we people, women in particular, can be and become, like Frank Castellano, oracles and channelers of divine truths and wisdom by clearing out, and this is where I'll mention someone else first. David Clements is someone I've followed for over a year. David Clements was an theoretical physicist, Cambridge, Oxford trained, who changed, transformed his life, and now speaks to Arcturians and Pleiadians, and presents to the public, to me, to anybody who wants to join, these guided meditations that are channeled from the divine, and all the star beings and galactic beings, and my little birds are hopping. These are they're hopping together in unison. This is so funny. Anyway, so David Clements, look on YouTube for any interviews with him, especially with Pam Gregory and some of the other fascinating alternative wise people in the world. And he does his own infinite source creations. That's infinite source creations, and creates products that help the world, the planet, and ourselves. But you can join in, especially on his Patreon group, to get these and participate in these meditations that he does every other week, in questions and answers. And he's becoming a big person that people are interviewing about the hope and change in the world. In fact, I'll go back to astrology for a little while. All the astrologers have said and will say the year of 2026 is this huge mountain of change, transformation. David Clements says the same, and we are going through it now. It started last December, depending on who you listen to, who you believe, or who you want to follow. You can follow me, by the way, on Substack. I will say that. I'm on Substack at Barbara Sanders. And I have a website called sacredtransformation.com, and that's sacred-transformation.com. Sacred-transformation.com. You can read about all the things I'm interested in and some of my writings, but mostly I write on Substack these days. And anyway, back to David Clements and the change. We're in the change right now. Some people call it the new human, the new earth. And why I went to David Clements, I'm not sure about. But anyway, I'll keep going with that for a minute. And remember, it's the Pythia process with Tammy. She and Emily are now going to combine this Pythia process, or you call her Pythia, Pythia, with their Eros Unbound starting in July. And you might want to look that up and see if you want to participate in that. I'm also going to a dream retreat with Tammy in the Blue Ridge Mountains in July. And one more thing I'll say about my resources. I also have been participating in 3 women's groups that I formed in the last couple of years. One is called Sacred Revolution Circle, and that's a group of women who meet monthly, who we collaborate. I used to be a leader in a lot of things, and now I'm more into collaboration. And so people in that group share their gifts and skills and offerings, and we have these experiential things we do once a month and then share amongst ourselves. And it's the most beautiful, intimate process. I did a thing last Saturday afternoon on energy healing, which is the way I'm headed and going and feel the most juice from and the most energy about is energy healing these days. Sandy Mueller is one of those people, Frank Castellano, Tammy Roth. And the other 2 groups I'm in, this Women's Integration Circle I mentioned from yesterday, and also a goddess group. I named it a goddess group, but a small group of a few women who get together once a month. All of these are once a month groups. And when people talk about retiring and wondering what they're going to do when they retire, Sagittarians love to learn. So I've been learning a lot knowledge-wise, but I've also been doing a lot of experiential work that I have always enjoyed, a little nervous about and scared about in the past, but enjoy more and more throughout life. And it feeds me, it nurtures me. And I would suggest to you to find whatever it is that nurtures you. For me, walking my dog several times a day, being out in nature, being out in the sun, in the world, the trees, the plants, water, all the elements, fire. All of those things are very nurturing to me. And now I live in the sky, which is the little fairy tale I'll read you about. I live in the sky in an apartment building on the 12th floor. So I'm looking at clouds and the sky and the birds all day long, every day, and then walking around in nature. And I love that. I'm going to move soon to a taller apartment building to be on the 22nd floor with windows on all sides of this corner unit. And I think it's going to be heaven for me. I would bring the ocean in if I could to Nashville, Tennessee. I'd bring the ocean and a little bit more water surrounding me so I could see all the seabirds and the ocean creatures and the fish and all the wonderful things about the salt air. But I don't have that here, so I'll have to keep going to Florida or somewhere to find that. Let me take a sip just for a second. Let me look at my notes and see if I want to say anything more. Oh, I guess the important thing for me is feeling more alive, just feeling more alive. I mean, I have health issues sometimes, like everybody, and as we age, things come up that are just spicy and new and like, why? And it's because you're older. So if we can keep our bodies healthy enough, and part of that is through our experiential and divine work with our energies, then we've got a better chance at feeling more alive. I feel like I've awakened more to all these energies, multidimensional energies. Some people talk about the world we live in. This reality is a 3-dimensional reality, and that if we can get up into the higher dimensions, 5th through 12th, and be there, which David Clements is so good at helping me be there in these other dimensions just through a sober meditation, I will say. They're sober meditations, not using any assisted medicines or anything like that. We can go into these other spaces and times and presences and beings and find our spirit guides and find our angels, if you want to call them that, or find the galactic resources that are out there and available to us also. David talks a lot about the advanced races, both above us in the cosmos and in Middle Earth. He talks about advanced races there. It's really amazing philosophy and theology, and I love listening to him and feeling the hope and the energy about how we can transform ourselves back to this crazy world, 3D. We can transform ourselves, and only, I think, maybe by transforming ourselves within, can we help transform the world? And I'm a part of lots of communities of like-minded, like-hearted people who believe that that really is where we start. We work with ourselves, on ourselves, with a divine help that we have, spiritual resources, with other humanity, people who can help us, all the resources we have available to us, and our own commitment to, and this one was hard for me and still is, our own commitment to being still, being quiet, meditating, listening, feeling, visualizing, being creative and imaginative, and letting ourselves see what's all around us, or feel or hear what's all around us all the time. If we can tap into it, again, through that quantum field breathing process. David Clements calls it rhythmic breathing. And there are all sorts of ways we can breathe, but if we can calm ourselves down enough and release some of the conditioning and toxins and I say just conditioning and ways we grew up in this patriarchal culture, not about men, but about the patriarchal culture full of hierarchies and high authority and low, the difference between the high authority and the famous and the rich and the low non-money makers and we are all part of, and I do believe that's connected to each other as humanity and other living beings, like my dog who's asleep over there listening to me. All the trees, plants, rocks, oceans, springs, air, storms, natural disasters like wildfires and hurricanes, we are all connected as humans with each other and with those natural Mother Earth and atmospheric and galactic happenings. And if we can be connected within ourselves safely first, and then with all of that, life is just a myriad of delightful experiences. Even when bad things happen, we can find ways to not just find silver linings in bad things that happen or seemingly bad things, but sometimes when tragic things happen or traumas happen, it stops us. Sometimes we grieve, we get despairing, we go through all the human emotions that are always going to be there, a whole range. And then we sometimes see the opening, the emptiness and the opening that has created, some void in our lives that allow us to plunge deeper into the juices, into the minerals and vitamins of Mother Earth and galactic space. Wow, I've gone out there. So let me just say one more thing about what I'm doing these days is I'm starting a new group called the Spiral of Light. And it's going to happen. I'm going to have the first meeting of people interested in being on a council of the Spiral of Light, July 18th. And if you want to know more about that, just get in touch with me. And what that is I'm feeling moved to create with others, collaborate again with others to just design and implement some sort of ceremonial celebratory space. And I don't know what that would look like yet. I don't know how it will be, where it will be. I imagine, though, bringing together all the things that I love, which is music, storytelling, poetry, meditation, healing practices, energy practices, writing, journaling, chanting, movement, dance. And I will do another shout out to Art and Soul, the Art and Soul community, ART and Soul community here in Nashville. You can Google also. Started me out in this experiential way of becoming knowledgeable about our own creativity. And Aranima Orr, who started and founded that program in Nashville, who is still around and has created, like the Estuary, this huge organization, which is not just huge, but a community of classes and inspiring workshops and ongoing programs to help all of us become more inspired, to be in touch with ourselves and our souls, and to create, like I did, paintings like this. There's some others, that heron over there is from Florida. I mean, anyway, artistic work, singing, spirit singing, toning, art and soul. Okay. So my spiral of light thing will be coming up, and I'll have some people to help me design and implement some sort of ceremonial sacred space for people to come of all sorts who want to share. And what I'm thinking about too is I'm hoping we're going to build, develop, and align with energetic vortexes, an energetic vortex of community and enlightenment and joy and hope and peace and love and compassion, and that we can have a place or a group of people, a circle of people who devote their energy into that, are committed to growth and development and healing for everyone in the world, for all living beings in the world, to move away from violence and destruction to caring about each other in more active ways. Once we can, I was talking about clearing out with David Clements, once we allow ourselves to be cleared out of some of our stresses and toxins and patterns and ways of being that don't serve us well anymore. They might have helped us survive, but they did not help us always to thrive. And now we can let go of some of what we have been and practiced in the past, or were fueled and driven to do in the past by doing lots of therapy and lots of alternative practices to get in touch with all that and then clear it away, let it dissolve away from our bodies so that we're not stressed or being sickened by those patterns anymore, and become better humans, become better lights, spirals of light and hope for the world. I'll stop with my preaching there, and I want to read you my little fairy tale. I just looked to make sure I'm recording this. I am. Okay. I'm sure I'll say more later, but let me get to my fairy tale. So it takes a few minutes to read this, but just join in with me if you'd like, or you can stop at this point, whatever you'd like to do, and come back and visit, because I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear from you about what all this means to you, and to collaborate with you if you want to collaborate with me. So this is called The Lady Who Lives in the Sky, and it's a bit of metaphorical fiction, I realize. I call it a short story about love, light, and celebration, and you can find it on my Substack. I'm also someone who gets a little choked up and need liquids every now and then. Breathing helps. I could help teach anything to people. It'd be about helping yourself breathe well and deeply. So it starts with, you may have read Hansel and Gretel, about a witch who lived in the woods, a scary story about what can happen to little children and to witches. My story is not about a witch per se, nor about a forest and little children. This is also a story about, no, that's wrong. Let me go back. There is also a story about an old woman who lived in the shoe and an old woman who swallowed a fly. If you've not read that book, please read it. The Old Woman Who Swallowed a Fly. My story is not those stories either. My story is about a lady who lives in the sky. So it starts out with a little poetry and then goes to prose. Way up, far away from Mother Earth, floating around in the clouds near the sun, close to the moon and stars, dwells a lady who lives in the sky. She doesn't know why she lives in the sky. She just does. Her life is full of grace and light. Clear glass surrounds her. She peeks over the edges, viewing all the creatures flying around in the skies, all the insects that feed the birds, all the droppings that fall from the birds, fertilizing Mother Earth Gaia. She also observes from way up in the sky tiny-looking people who live on the ground, along with all sorts of animals, machines, cars, and buildings, a lot of cement, which live there too. Clouds and wind currents arrive each day, bringing moisture and hope, greeting this lady living in the sky. laden with sparkles of bright white. No one asks why she lives there. Even she is not clear about what happened, that she began living here in the sky. She remembers one morning awakening and rising from sleep, and then gradually and slowly moving up to the clouds, drifting toward the sun, then resting suspended in the sky, somewhat astonished, but relaxed as well, no longer exactly human, but still embodied, wondering why she was moving up to the sky. One day a knock came at her door, and a beautiful multi-dimensional brown hawk appeared at her doorstep. She asked the brave bird if he knew why she was living so high in the sky. He did not know, but asked if he could come inside to look around. The lady noticed a sign on the outside of the door, which she hadn't seen before, and it said, "Abandon all despair, ye who enter here." The lady was radiant, beaming, yes, pulling her door wide open, welcoming the hawk into her home in the sky. She greeted him tenderly, softly touching his gorgeous feathers. The wise hawk wandered around, flapping his wings as he glided slowly through her home, remarking on this or that. The lady was pleased to have a new friend in the sky. After he left, she invited him to come again and bring some friends next time. He smiled broadly and thanked her for her visit. The lady slept deeply and peacefully that night after his visit and only stirred when the sun peaked above the horizon. She was excited to see what would happen on this new day. The lady spent some time gazing out into the sky, adventuring into all kinds of places and spaces, times and rhythms. She enjoyed the gifts of memories and also appreciated the present day filled with stunning sights about what happens in life and what happens next. She closed her eyes once more. This time the knock on her door was louder and more precise. Oh, who could it be, she wondered, opening the door and looking into the eyes of both Pegasus and a small magenta unicorn with a horn huddled beside the grand white winged horse whom she remembered from her past. They waltzed in comfortably. Behind them, a dark black panther padded in. She also had met them before, a valued friend from so long ago. An elephant and a giraffe bent down to enter through the door, and then a duck and a goose waddled in as well. The lady had somehow known them before, too. One by one, more birds and animals proceeded through the door, mystified at this glass structure in the sky. The dragons brought fire with them as they entered the glass home. The sea creatures swam in bringing water as if a tide flowing forth. Dolphins, whales, crabs, jellyfish, sharks, other fish, and coral, all creeping in and looking about, musing to themselves and to others. Plants and flowers and fruited trees brought soil, roots, and the mycelial network with them when they arrived inside this stunning glass enclosure. Jaguars, tigers, and mountain lions slunk in, sniffing about, followed by domestic dogs and cats, baby pigs, spiders, and ferrets. This is no Noah's Ark, the lady laughed as she watched more and more creatures sliding in the door. Snakes and rats, serpents and snails, each wandered in politely enough. What a beautiful home has been created for me, she glowed as she observed all the mammals, insects, reptiles, plants, and trees. She had not realized she was going to host a party. Fairies and sprites flew in, and trolls stumbled through the door to participate in this celebration, bringing glitter, glamour, and humor inside, along with a mountain, a neighbor, sturdy and smart, with ice on its peak. Spiritual resources like guides and angels, ancestors, and a whole host of galactic beings also became visible to meet and greet those like them and those unlike them. Rocks, stones, and crystals trickled in as well. Finally, the lady who lived in the sky closed the door after a multitude of bright red roses showered all the beings who entered her home. Excuse me. What have I done to deserve so many friends, new and old? She exclaimed out loud. A scarab beetle who had crawled in through the closing door rolled up some dung and responded, Well, we've been waiting around a long time, lifetimes even, until you became ready to receive us. Lo and behold, you unfastened your door, opened your heart, and are now sharing your home with us. Thank you for inviting us in. We appreciate your hospitality. The lady rejoiced, bouncing around like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. Soon the lady who lives in the sky witnessed a slow-moving, glowing golden orb from afar glide toward her, surrounding her home and soothing and warming her lovely guests. The orb penetrated the glass with a golden cord which traveled through the glass gently, moving toward the lady. The lady bowed as the golden rope encircled her waist. She held the cord sweetly in her hands. When this bright orb sneaked through these glass walls, all of the creatures and beings heard a tinkling sound as if a hollow piece of glass crystal was being struck lightly by a small mallet. Announcing the orb's presence, the jingling, twinkling sound vibrated with a frequency that guests could only slightly hear. They could, however, witness the exciting energies flowing all around them, and their attention became alert and reverent. A female voice then spoke, translating her words into all the languages and communication styles of each participant. What the lady who lives in the sky heard was, "Welcome to you all. Thank you for gifting us with your presence and willingness to be part of this exuberant sacred space. You have each experienced beauty, light, joy, sorrow, fun, grief, and sometimes violence on Mother Earth, given your various natures, instincts, and ways of being. You have sometimes killed each other and eaten each other for food. At other times, you've helped to transport water, food, and minerals and love to each other, to others of your species, and to all species. Each of these actions has been natural for you. Thank you for your participation in this thing called life. You have all gathered here not because you were told to or thought you should. You have often been curious about the great mysteries inside and beyond Mother Earth. You have each performed your roles to the best of your abilities, even though mistakes are quite normal. Now I'm asking you to open up even more to the bright light of love and forgiveness, and to the deep darkness of the shadows that continue to surround you. Open to all the storms as well as to the springs of water that nourish you. If you'll close your eyes, or even while you keep them open, I will bless each of you with divine nectar and oils which will carry you forward for the rest of your lives. Each of these living beings closed their eyes, and each felt as if this divine being was speaking only to them. Each felt a sweet touch or a kiss on their foreheads, excuse me, kiss on their foreheads, shells, scales, feathers, or skins, as Grace gleamed throughout the crowd, bestowing her blessings. This divine feminine voice began to channel her intentions through the lady who lived in the sky. She said, I want you all to know that I'm always present to you, to each of you all of the time. If you will breathe with me, my vibrations, energies, and frequencies will bring you so much peace and love that are as available to you as ever. They are available to all who live. Whenever you gather here or wherever you are at times, be still and quiet and focus on this divine nourishment in your lives. You may feel wondrous gratitude like I feel in your presence. In wildly celebratory ceremonies or alone in silence, you will know clearly that you are loved and that you are beautiful. I adore and treasure each of you. Just a little bit more. Then the lady who lives in the sky spoke in her own voice with her own words and said, My home is open to you and to your friends and families. It is even open to your enemies and to those you do not understand. Please come by when you want to, and we can all offer our hopes and dreams, prayers and blessings to each other while we connect together in community and while we connect with these blessed divine mysteries. Now it's time to close this sacred celebration. Thank you all for coming. And the lady looked around. All of the beings who had come in through the door filed out with ease and love. They went back to where they came from, some by water, some spewing fire, and some sliding in dirt. The lady knew that she would see them again soon. She smiled and laughed a little, and when she finally closed the door, she laid down to rest. She dreamt of ice cream and chocolate, swimming and dancing. So every now and then when you look up at the sky, if you squint your eyes gently, you can see out of your eyes' peripheral vision a floating glass house, shifting about in the sky, moving from here to there, often colorful, like a prism reflecting all of the lights from our world and from the galaxies and cosmos. On some days, the structure is so clear you can't even see it. On other days, it may appear to be dark and may be roaming around the world or out in the cosmos, visiting other galaxies, planets, suns, and moons. And if you open your heart really wildly and breathe, widely or wildly, and breathe really deeply, maybe one day you too can visit the lady who lives in the sky and join with this community of every sort of energetic living being you have ever heard about, read about, or seen yourself, and then some. Do be careful when you talk about knowing this lady living in the sky, because other human beings may view you as crazy or accuse you of just being plain old weird, like those who see aliens in the air. And that's okay. You can smile to yourself and know that you've experienced a special type of light and love that you will continue to shine upon others, whether they know it or not. You also know that these others may not accept this brightness because they must be open and ready to receive it, for them to know it too. And that is not up to you to help them do so, each in their own time. Now you know the truth of the lady who lives in the sky, and you can join her on her adventures at any point in time. She will greet you with amazement and joy. And that's the close of that writing. And I realize as I read it and as I wrote it, how filled up with delight I am about that and how metaphorical it is, because I do feel like my life is full of so many energies and beings and life and joy and grief and loss and danger and disaster and all those things that we live with day to day, and that we can become more true to ourselves. We can become more wise and share that wisdom and the love we feel with others, and that's how we change the world. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and I will talk with you soon. Look for another poem soon on my YouTube channel here. It's called Lady Mystifica. Yeah, I made up that word, Lady Mystifica, and it's a lovely little poem. Bye. Blessings to you all.